Hi, and welcome back to AI for Everyone. If you're joining us for the first time, you've walked in at a great moment, but I should warn you, you've caught us a little bit midstream. Right now, we're working our way through the AI Fluency series, navigating 75 lessons designed to move people up the proficiency or fluency ladder. We're taking anyone from level 1, the skeptic, who is just trying to understand the invisible AI in their Netflix queue, all the way to level 5, the strategic architect building systems for the future. I'm your host, Brett Hansen, and I'm not a futurist making wild predictions from a glass tower. I'm a practitioner. Through Hansen Education Services and my work as a school teacher, I spend my days in the trenches, working directly with small business owners and students, trying to help them grow their AI skills. My job is to help you build AI taste and intelligence, those unique human qualities of judgment and intellect that separates a generic output from a brilliant one. If you're listening to this and realize you need more than just a few podcast episodes, if you need a guide for your business, a workshop for your staff, or one-on-one mentoring to get your own workflows sorted and build your AI skills, that's exactly what I do. You can find out more about my consulting and classes at hanseneducationservices.com or email me at hanseneducationservices@gmail.com. But right now, you're here to learn, so let's get to it. Do me a favor. Tap your AI icon on your phone, whichever you use more often, and then hit the voice button and ask it to recite your favorite poem or your favorite quote, something you learned in middle school from a great teacher or from your grandparents. Mine would be a poem by Li Po, and every time I listen to it, it calms me. I enjoy it immensely, relaxing on the side of a mountain with the wonderful mountain breeze and a rocky stream rinsing ear and heart clean. And before I even start listening to it, I see that interface that brings me this wonderful moment. It's really beautiful in many ways. The white space, the rounded corners, and the polite text of most AI interfaces. And the whole experience feels weightless, and a lot of people refer to it as magic. It feels like this request materialized out of the digital ether, costing nothing but a split second of my time. We have this collective delusion that the cloud is actually a cloud, fluffy white, floating in the sky, powered by vibes and good intentions. But the cloud isn't a cloud. It's a factory. It's acres of server racks in the desert, or maybe in the not too distant future along the coast of Lake Michigan where I live, screaming with heat. It's millions of gallons of water evaporating into steam just to keep the silicon from melting. And perhaps most uncomfortably, it is a human being in Nairobi or Manila, sitting in a cramped cafe, looking at things you would never want to see, just so our chatbots know how to be polite. Welcome to Lesson 9. Today we're going to talk about something that might feel pretty heavy, but it's absolutely necessary in order to move from being a tourist to a local in this AI world, to really know what's going on. Today we're going to talk about the cost, the ethical cost of AI, and the material cost on the planet. We're going to talk about the water, the watts, and the ghost workers who make this magic trick possible. So we do have to get honest, and we have to start, therefore, with a confession. On my part. I love these tools. You know I do. I use them every day to run my classroom, to organize my thoughts, and occasionally to help my clients. But for a long time, I treated them like they were free, and sometimes I will sort of space out and forget. Not so much financially, because, I pay my $20 a month for Gemini, which is not much at all for everything I get from it. But I'm talking about more physically free. I treat AI and AI prompts like a Google search. And that's my first mistake. When you type a query into Google, something say like best pizza in Chicago, Google is essentially running a program that looks for something in a catalog. It's a retrieval. It's fast and it's cheap. When you ask ChatGPT or Gemini to write your review of the best pizza in Chicago, it isn't looking anything up. It's thinking. Well, not thinking exactly, but computing. It's running billions of calculations to predict the next word, and then the next, and then the next. And that difference really matters. Research suggests that a single query to a large language model uses about 10 to 15 times more energy than a standard Google search or internet search. And even if we take the smaller number, 10 times, that's a lot. If you multiply 10 times a tiny number, it's still a pretty small number, right? But if you multiply that by the hundreds of millions of users using AI every day, over and over and over again, that's the heat. These chips, these GPUs that power the AI get incredibly hot. And to keep them from frying, data centers need cooling. You've probably heard about this. Massive amounts of cooling. They gulp down water to evaporate the heat away. Another study estimates, and the numbers fluctuate now because the models are getting more efficient, and that's something to decide which ones to use. But another study, it estimates that for every 30 to 50 queries you type into a model like GPT-4, the data center drinks about 500 milliliters of water, or evaporates. That's a standard water bottle. So look at your chat history from yesterday. Did you ask 30 questions? I know I did, far more. If you did, imagine a full water bottle sitting on your desk, and now you just pour it out wastefully for no reason. That's what it costs to cool the servers for your conversation. Now, does this mean you should stop using AI? No. I drove a car to get to work this morning. You probably drove to get someplace important, and that burned gas. We consume resources to do work, and that's the nature of industry in the 21st century. But we do need to stop pretending that it's magic, and we need to be mindful that it is industry and there are costs. Every time you hit enter, you're turning on a machine. You are burning coal or natural gas or using power generated from electrical sources. And most importantly, you're using water. If you are using that machine to cure cancer, to write a grant proposal that helps a nonprofit, or to save yourself 3 hours of work so you can be with your kids, that's a trade-off most people are probably willing to make. But if you're using that machine to generate a funny picture of a dog wearing a hat just to amuse yourself for a few seconds before you go to your next meeting, that's an expensive dog photo. But the environmental cost is just the electric bill. The part that keeps me up at night, the part that should make us all pause, is the human bill. We talked in Lesson 7 about the HAL myth, the idea that AI is the sentient alien entity that we have to watch out for. But the truth is, AI is just a mirror. It is trained on the internet. And have you looked closely at the internet lately? The internet is full of Shakespeare and scientific breakthroughs, but it's also full of racism, violence, hate speech, and truly horrific imagery. So when they scrape the internet to train these models, they get all of it, the good and the bad. If you released a raw AI model directly to the public, it would be a monster. It would spew hate speech, as some of it did in the beginning. It would give you instructions on how to make a bomb. It would show you graphic violence and a lot of pornography. So how does it become the polite, helpful, I'm sorry, as an AI language model, I cannot do that, assistant that we know and appreciate? Did the programmers write a line of code that said, if, parentheses, evil, brackets, don't, parentheses, end bracket, question mark? No, they used a process called RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. And that is a fancy way of saying they hired humans to look at the bad stuff. There have been investigations by Time Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, and tech ethicists like Karen Howe, her book is wonderful, exposing the reality of this supply chain. And big tech companies often outsource this work to firms in places like Kenya, the Philippines, or India. Workers, often paid less than $2 an hour, sit at screens for 8 or 9 hours a day, and their job is to look at the toxicity of the internet so that we don't have to. They look at descriptions of violence, they look at hate speech, they look at child abuse material, and they click a button that says, "This is bad. Don't show this to the user." They, the humans, are the filter. They are the blast shield. They absorb the trauma of the worst of humanity so that you and I don't have to. I read an interview with one of these workers in Kenya, and he talked about how he couldn't sleep afterwards. He had flashbacks. He talked about how the things he had read to teach the AI were things no human should ever have to see. But he had to do it because he needed the money. He did that so we could ask ChatGPT to write a polite email to our bosses. This is the agency gap in action, but in a tragic way. The AI has no agency. It doesn't know what is good or bad. It only knows what is statistically probable. A human being had to inject their morality into the machine, hour by hour, click by click, for pennies. We call them ghost workers because the tech companies don't want us to know about them. They want them to be invisible. They want you to think the AI is just naturally smart and safe, but it's not. It's safe because a human in Nairobi made it safe. So when we talk about the ethical cost, we aren't just talking about carbon footprints. We're talking about a supply chain that relies on hidden, traumatizing labor. I know it's heavy, but if we want to be able to perform well in this area, we have to look at all aspects of the AI we're creating and promoting. And you might be thinking, so what am I supposed to do with this? Should I cancel my subscription? Maybe, but I think there's a more nuanced answer. I think this is where we start to develop AI taste for specific reasons. Let's go back to the ESCT cycle, or experience leads to skills. Those together lead to more confidence, and then experience, skills, and confidence together lead to a higher level of taste. A level 1 or 2 user becomes more proficient by using AI for everything, probably because it's a bit of a novelty and they want to grow. They generate 50 images of a certain type of cat, or they ask AI to write songs about their lunch. They treat it sometimes like a toy. But a more advanced level user will be aware of the costs and treat it like a tool. And sometimes tools should be set aside, and sometimes they should be used, and they can be dangerous. Once we know the cost, once we know how much water is used, how many watts of electricity it uses up, and the human trauma that went into building this thing, we can use it more intelligently and compassionately. We develop a sense of what is a worthy task. So my general philosophy, and I invite you to try it if you want to, is to simply respect the heavy machinery, respect these powerful tools. If I need to write a quick text message to my wife saying, I'll be home late, I don't need an AI for that. I don't particularly use AI for all my tasks. I don't use them for anything that I don't need the tool for. And to be honest, using a trillion parameter model to generate a text message that is simple is like using a flamethrower to light a birthday candle. It's overkill and it's wasteful. But if I'm trying to synthesize 3 complex studies to understand a better process to help my struggling readers become better readers and to grow, in my opinion, that's a worthy task. If I'm trying to create a lesson plan that will engage 30 students who have fallen behind in reading and have pretty much given up on their growth, I think that's a worthy task. If I'm a small business owner trying to write a contract that protects my livelihood, definitely a worthy task. Developing AI taste isn't just about getting better outputs. It's about ethical consumption. It's about asking, is the value I am getting out of this prompt or experience worth the cost it took to process it? And when you view AI through this lens, you stop being a consumer and you become a much more efficient and better operator. An operator respects the machine, respects the tool. An operator knows that every button press has a consequence. And ironically, this actually makes you a better user of AI. Because when you reserve the tool for the hard problems, the complex high-level reasoning tasks, you get better results. You challenge yourself more. You stop asking it to be a party trick and you start asking it to be a partner. So how do we put this into practice? I don't want anyone to feel guilty for using AI. I am going to continue to use it, and I'm going to try to get better at it. Guilt is a useless emotion in technology. I want you to feel responsible. So here is your Try This Today challenge. Let's call it the high stakes audit. Step 1, when you get a chance, open your AI history, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever you use. Scroll back through your last 10 chats or conversations, and I want you to grade them. You could put them into 2 categories or buckets. Bucket A is high value. These are the prompts that saved you significant time, helped you solve a real problem, or taught you something new. Bucket B is low value. These are the party tricks, the tell me a joke, write me a funny poem, the laziness prompts when you asked it to do something you could have done yourself in 10 seconds. You just didn't want to have to put forth the mental effort. Step 4, look at the ratio. If you are 90% low value, you are burning water and human labor for entertainment, and you should really consider adjusting your usage. If you are 90% high value, you are using the utility as it was intended. And my challenge to you is to eliminate at least one low-value habit this week. Stop asking it to write your simple emails. Write them yourself. Keep your human voice and maintain your intellectual growth. Save the machine and the tool for the draft of the big report or the research that would take you 5 hours that Notebook LM can do for you in 5 minutes. And here's a pro tip for the advanced users. If you're going to use AI, try to get it right on the first prompt. We've talked about SWIMMER as an acronym to remember how to write good prompts in the beginning of this podcast and in some of the lessons for proficiency. And so if you write a lazy 2-word prompt and get a bad answer, then you have to write another prompt and ask it again and again and again. That's 3 queries, 4 queries, too many queries, and that's costing a lot more energy. It's exponentially more wasteful. If you write a robust, structured prompt with context and examples, you get the right answer or a good answer the first time. And I spend as much time as I can with my students trying to teach them how to write better prompts. Better prompting isn't just about efficiency. It's about conservation. Be precise, be thoughtful, remember SWIMMER. Don't waste the cycle. We often think of ethics as this abstract philosophical debate in a university lecture hall. But in the age of AI, ethics is physical. It's the heat coming off the server. It's the water in the cooling tower, and it's the paycheck of a moderator in Nairobi. I'm not telling you to stop using the tools or even suggesting that. I'm asking you to make it count. If we're going to use this incredible power, this incredible tool, let's make sure we're using it to build something worthy of the cost. So remember that. Let's do a better job so that we can be smarter with our resources, kinder to humans, and wiser with ourselves. Talk to you next time.